like a man. Be like a man. Man up. Ask yourself, what does it mean when you hear a father say this to his son? Is society creating a double standard for the ideology of men? Is this meaning that if a boy does something resembling a stereotypical girl attitude or action, that they are not considered masculine or manly enough? Do these types of questions infer a divide in society and a divide among gender by simply classifying what is and is not acceptable in certain aspects of life? So in effect, this is prohibiting women's ability to continue striving for equality based upon these classifications of women. Think about a tomboy or a girly girl, all classifications for a certain ideology of a gender. And these very ideologies and classifications is what's causing a roadblock in women's continued uphill battle to achieve equality and success in our society today. Now, my mother was working at the AI DuPont Children's Hospital at the time she met my father. She was a researcher regarding child obesity. And at this time, she was obtaining a larger salary than my father. However, once she had my sister and I, she decided to quit her job and become a full-time stay-at-home mom. But the trade-off. My mother was not able to exceed her full potential. There's something to be said about living in the moment and taking advantage of that, because so many people aren't able to. My mother chose a lifestyle to dedicate every second of every day to better sister and I's lives. And that is beyond extraordinary as the only word to describe it. But there's also something to be said about how women have to find this balance between their professional and home life. On the flip side, being someone like my mother, I can see a part missing. I look in her eyes and I see a vacancy. It surprises me to hear her laugh. It looks painful sometimes to see her smile. It hurts. It's sad. It hurts me, it hurts my sister, and it especially hurts my father. Her passion and her drive were forced to be consolidated due to making such drastic sacrifices for me and my family. Her ability of content and success is so much more difficult. Now my grandmother. My grandmother is an entrepreneur and is still currently a very successful business owner that has transformed into the family business that my father, uncle, and grandfather are all a team member of. During my father's adolescent years, my grandmother was going through a divorce at the same time for the peak transformation of the success of her company. My mother chose the lifestyle to dedicate her time to have this reassurance of a successful business for her children. However, during my father's adolescent years, my father had to take time and bring aid to his siblings when his mother was not present. But this is something that has made my father so admirable in my eyes. Now, my grandmother was so successful that she was able to send her 3 children to attend a private school in order to receive education and in order to go above and beyond the success that she has already paved the way for. But the trade-off. Did you find yourself judging her for having to choose her work over her children in some circumstances? Do you feel she should have taken other measures for her children? The questions are the issue. The idea that women and men judge other females based upon their attention and dedication to their children as if men are not equally responsible. We need to define our own success and ambitions through our own means. If happiness is found through success, then we cannot lose sight of that. Now my aunt. My aunt is a teacher and has been a teacher in Delaware for over 20 years. Although she is single, she maintains such a close relationship with her friends and family. Every time you see her, she lightens up with a smile. She makes anyone feel so good about themselves. Her genuine love really does radiate, something not often found in society. Now, I can tell you that my aunt is someone who sets standards for herself and will not lower her expectations for anything less than she deserves. Because honestly, no one should have to. Your decisions should be made through the outcome of happiness. If you are not happy, then there is no value present, and we must all see that worth in ourselves. We need to own our worth and create our happiness. But the trade-off, just because my aunt did not fit the stereotypical mold of a woman in society today being able to create a family on her own, is simply because she has a level of self-confidence and self-respect that I feel every woman should have and own up to. But the truth is hard to swallow, that everyone has a vacancy in their heart. Everyone has a that is scarred. Everyone has their own forms of insecurities and vulnerabilities. Now, the holidays can be a difficult time for families, appreciating one another, pleasing one another, and really being thankful for all you have. And I see my aunt frequently, especially around the holidays, and her face looks paler. I can look in her eyes and I see that vacancy, that insecurity, that vulnerability, that wound, that scar. You know, people always say no one should have to wake up alone. However, I find this so far from the truth. No one or woman should wake up knowing they're living an unsuccessful, non-influential, or unhappy life. We need to redefine our success as women and throw these stereotypes and double standards and expectations out the window. Yes, women have a tendency to be wanted. We all want to be wanted. But if you cannot be happy with yourself, how are you to be happy with someone else? You can't. Now, a short story about my father. So one day, my mother had a meeting at school, and she couldn't cook us dinner. Now, this would be 1 out of 2 nights that she hasn't, because my mom is hands down one of the best cooks that I've ever met. So she did what anyone else would do. She gave him a list of instructions to follow. It was a really simple dinner to keep plain for my dad. It was some chicken, rice, and broccoli. All we needed was a stove and an oven top, and we were ready to go. However, it did not go as planned. My father couldn't figure out whether to keep the rice in the egg or take it out. Now, don't get me wrong, my father is a pretty bright guy. Cooking, not his thing. We had to call our family members to walk us through this process. We didn't even touch the chicken or broccoli until later, so you can only imagine how that turned out. But heaven forbid, something happened to my mother, and she was unable to provide for my family and I. How would we survive? And honestly, I don't think we will make it a day without her. I mean, we're gonna need rice. Now, there's a certain double standard in society today, and it aims at gender inequality. They title it the Shirtless Man. And basically, it describes how men are allowed to walk around with no shirts and no shame, that they can show their muscles or lack thereof, and this can be a normal occurrence. However, women have to be so conscious of what we wear. Fear of giving men the wrong impression because of how we look. Fear of being judged because of our natural figure. But there comes to a point we as women need to stand and say, so what? And this comes back to owning our worth, creating our happiness, because without that self-confidence, that self-respect, and that ambition, what are we? What is the point? And there is none. We aim to set standards and not lower our expectations for anything less than we deserve. We aim to not be judged by lifestyles we choose based upon professional or home life. We aim to be valued. We aim to be respected. We as women and men need to realize that we are all looking through the same lens, that women are still on their way up for equality. That is evident, that this is a gradual process that we are overcoming. However, we as women need to realize that we hold all of the power in the world. We were given the ability from God or science, whichever you believe, to create new life, to provide future generations for the world we were born into by our mothers, women. So to all of you women out there, do not be afraid to figuratively take off your shirt. Do not be afraid to own yourself and know your worth. I mean, put it this way, there would be no you without all of this. Thank you.